You're listening to MarceyLynn once again on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Hello, all. Happy Thursday. You're going to see me on a little bit of a delay today because, of course, you know I'm in my home office and I live in Beaver Hills, and sometimes it's a little delayed because of the signals that's over here. So I am happy to be here. I'm sorry I had to miss you guys last week. I had to take care of some things. I am praying for the gentleman that got shot on my street. You know, I was directly there, and it really hurt to see that our daylight, it doesn't matter anymore. So on that note, I'd like to introduce my guest for today, Tom Goldenberg. Now, what has happened is I all of a sudden saw this gentleman running around with somebody I really, really respect in the campaign world. And I decided that I wanted to have him on my show. And this is him sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee. We are going to talk. We're going to talk about the things that are crucial to our neighborhoods. But at the same time, this is a get to know him show. I want you guys to get to know him. I don't want you to just look online. I want you to be able to use this show to research the genuine person as he's speaking to us. Thank you so much, Tom, for taking out the time.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it.
And so I just tell me, I don't know you from Adam, just act like that and tell me exactly who you are, your background, where you came from. I know you're a youngin', so you technically would be one of my nephews. So tell us all about yourself.
Sure, happy to do so. So I grew up in West Haven in the Knox Street neighborhood there. My folks are still over there. They're retired teachers. My dad was a teacher, special ed teacher at ACES for about 40 years. And my mom was in Hampton Public Schools in their alternative program, also retired. And yeah, I just grew up in the area. I went to public schools in West Haven and in New Haven. I attended the ECA, Education Center for the Arts magnet school. So I've always felt a part of this community, as long as I can remember. And, my life has had a lot of twists and turns. When in my 20s, after a couple of years of college, I decided to go to India. I happened to be there during the tsunami of 2004. I don't know if you remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
That was a devastating event for a lot of countries, and India was also affected. I happened to be in a coastal village on southwest India. It was not as badly hit as other parts of the region, but we had 100 casualties. Almost all of the houses were completely destroyed, and there was no warning, of course, right? So it just happened. I happened to be in it, and so I was involved in moving people to safety. And then afterwards, the organization where I was staying, we were involved in building temporary shelters, really just helping with the rebuilding efforts. And so I stayed in India for quite a long time. I was there off and on across 9 years. And then I came back to New Haven. And, when I came back to New Haven, again, I had a lot of, twists and turns in my career. I worked in hospitality downtown. I was in Cali on Orange Street, and then Pacifico on College.
So that's coming up on my next question. So that really goes, because I was really getting ready to ask you, what civic organizations or nonprofits have you worked with? Or been active in recent years? So those are a few, and I'm sure there are many more being in hospitality. So in hospitality, did you interact with more of the business groups, or it's more civic groups than it would be hospitality or nonprofits, correct?
Well, so this was more of a formative period of my life and career. And so I'll be honest with you, this was just me trying to, make money to pay the rent. So at that time, I was less involved with nonprofit organizations that would come later. But, from there, I got into the world of technology. I taught myself how to code by going to one of these coding boot camps. I joined.
Great experience.
What's that?
I said great experience. I think all our teenagers need to do that right now.
Yeah, and it did really open my eyes that college education is not absolutely necessary to get a good job. This was something that I found I could do without having to go to get a degree in or anything. And that really kind of opened my eyes there. I then became a business owner. From there, I became a consultant. And it was really when I joined these, these large, global management consulting firms that I put two and two together. I remember when I came back from India, I had this experience of thinking, 9 years and really helping to make a difference and having an impact was incredibly meaningful to me. But when I came back, I thought, wouldn't it be nice to do something in the region where I'm from?
Exactly.
I grew up in this area. And
Exactly.
the other part of the puzzle was, after I went through this journey of so many different career opportunities, when I found myself at these consulting firms, I was at Boston Consulting Group, and then I was at McKinsey for 4 years. I realized that, they do very strategic and important work for government, state government, city government. We're talking about New York City, the state of Connecticut, you name it. And that's when I said, well, here's my opportunity to really get the experience I need so that I could really help to make an impact in New Haven. And that's been the last, several years. And I've got to work with, major U.S. cities. I've worked with U.S. mayors, with U.S. states on a range of topics, education system, how do we adapt after COVID? I got the city $100 million federal grant to build a workforce development program to create jobs. I've worked with housing developers, pension funds, and that has really given me the confidence to say, my lived experience and perspective in New Haven and the experience I've gotten through these professional opportunities makes me feel like I can really make a difference here.
And that's amazing because you're covering another question as I'm getting ready to ask them, which is good. And that question was really, give me what distinguishes you from other candidates that we have. So a lot of it, things that you just mentioned. But aside from that, is there anything else that would distinguish you from other candidates as well?
I think if you look at the work that I've done, there's a breadth, right? A lot of times they'll say about someone's career, you should be like a T, right? You should have a long breath, but you should be very focused on one thing. I've really focused on the issues that matter to U.S. cities. And so whether it's education, which is currently a big crisis, I believe, in the city right now, or it's, housing policy, or it's, fiscal issues that we face, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best in, other cities and other organizations on these things. So I think there's a breadth of experience. The fact that, I have a very solution-focused mindset to some of the issues we face. So I think you'll find that I'm not just pointing a finger and I'm saying this is bad, but I will always come to the table with, what I can put forward as what I best believe is a way to go forward. And I do that not just by myself. It's a very collaborative process. I believe in talking to as many people as possible and gathering as much input, whether it's from people on the ground in the city or from, experts outside the city, and really trying to come forth with what's the best plan to bring us forward.
That's true. And, you really got to have a plan. And with that, it's just, what strategy would you use for, a lot of the opioid and drug addiction is coming from mental illness, especially after COVID. What strategies or what have you dealt with as a challenge with these type of things? And how were you able to rectify them or resolve them in a way where it didn't feel like it was a discrimination, or, because they discriminate probably not only because of your age, but because you're a white male. So with going into these things in New Haven, especially, maybe, there are some people that have problems that are not opioid related, but We have to remember that most of that is mental health. So what would be your strategy to get like-minded people to help, the help that they need? Because our therapists, our licensed social workers, our psychologists, all of them are ending up having mental health issues themselves because they're overwhelmed. What strategy would you, use to maybe get some more people educated in helping, in aiding, in certifying, finding those people that have been recovered for a long time and, giving them a voice?
Yeah, I think that you're bringing up a very complicated issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
The issue is, I think you mentioned mental health, and I think that has a lot of different aspects,
Yes.
whether it's a youth or adult population. And then you mentioned specifically, opioid addiction, and other things of that sort. I mean, there's a lot there. I can say some of the things I've talked about is the need to balance a public health approach, which we absolutely need, but while maintaining respect for our communities. And I think this is something that we haven't seen. So for example, I spent a good amount of time spending time at several of the methadone clinics in and around the city. I had heard, that residents in the Hill and New Hallville were concerned about some of the decisions that were being made without their input.
Yes.
And I needed to get the firsthand experience. So that's exactly what I did. I spent 5 days visiting, talking to patients, clinic staff, talking to, in the case of Congress Avenue, some of the illegal drug dealers that hang out outside of the facility, talked to a number of people. And I ended up publishing an actual diary about that experience and what I went through. And
Yes.
the conclusion I came to is that I think we absolutely need to support evidence-based treatment. I think methadone clinics can be very effective, but the way that they've been is located, to me, just doesn't seem like logical or right. Like the one that is on Congress Avenue is right next to the John Daniel School. We know that there's been incidents of both violence and just quality of life issues, syringes left out. It's not a great environment for people that are walking their kids to school. And a lot of people were, I myself was surprised that I was really the first politician to really say anything about it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I said I didn't think it was an appropriate place. And now we've seen that that has been accepted by, the mayor has also come to that conclusion as well. I also did not feel it was appropriate for App Foundation to move into the New Hallville neighborhood without any community input at all. So these are things that, we need to be open about. We need to, make sure that there's community input on these decisions. Because if you're just trying to force it down a community, first of all, a lot of the patients that are coming in are not even living in New Haven. They're coming from outside. And then these neighborhoods, which if you look at the Hill and New Hallville, these are, Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, are having to deal with the consequences of that. And there was something that struck me as that being deeply wrong, and I wanted to say something about it. And I'm glad that it has started to get some public attention. I do think when I think about the youth, and you had mentioned specifically about mental illness, I think there is something about not just mental health issues, but like, how do we really inspire our youth from a young age? We see a lot of youth that are not going to school, right? We had the worst chronic absenteeism in the state, behind Bridgeport, Hartford, and Waterbury. So I think I myself, having attended several of the education meetings, I was disappointed when the rationale was that, well, it's COVID, and so that's why we slid. But COVID has been everywhere, not just in New Haven. And I think our school system has slid back more than other school systems because we haven't actually like looked at, our kids actually, like, do they want to go to school? Like, do they feel safe at school? Do they feel engaged with their teachers and in their classrooms? And I think that ultimately we need to unlock that, because that, you know, having something that you can aspire to be from a young age is something that can really motivate kids, not just to go to school, but to do well and stay out of trouble. And we're seeing a lot of youth getting involved in things they shouldn't be involved with, the car thefts and the Kia boys. We're seeing a lot of involvement in gun violence, actually. With minors. And I think it goes back to, how do you come in the middle school years, because, you know, they say you can't be what you don't see, and give these kids a real understanding of what the pathways are and how they can achieve something. And then when you get to high school, how do we, once you've created that motivation, how do we unlock that for those students? It doesn't necessarily, again, I go back to my own story, it doesn't necessarily have to mean a college degree. We should be doing internships, apprenticeships, certifications, all in high school, so that when kids do get out of high school, they can get a quality job. So I think all these things are related, how we treat our communities, how we work with the nonprofits that are in the New Haven area, and how we think about our education and our jobs. They're all, like I said, it's a complicated.
It's an ethical dilemma that is heightened by systematic racism. That is how I feel about it. So it's just a matter of how you touch it so the kids can see that you actually can be what you want to be. That's why I do what I do as far as my show is concerned. A lot of my guests are small business owners. A lot of them have had a past. I purposely put Janice Parker on this. I don't know if you know Janice Parker. You should meet her. Her story is exactly what our young ladies need to see. So, you know, you come from one place doesn't mean that you have to be stuck there. So showing our children what they need to see so they can be all that they can be. And knowing that maybe sometimes their surroundings are not what they're supposed to be. So now we have to reach out to the entire family. You know, there's a lot of two-parent households that would be two-parent households if, you know, a father or a mother wasn't incarcerated for something that they didn't do. So we're digging into all kinds of deep dilemmas here. So when I say ethical dilemmas, give me one that you faced and how you resolved it.
Well, you sounded like a job interview now.
Well, yeah, it is a job interview.
It is, right?
Listen, well, my tax money is going to pay you.
I think ethical dilemmas, the way I frame that, is a situation where you know what is the right thing to do, but you're also concerned about the risks associated with it. And I mean, I can even just go back to the stuff with the methadone clinics. That was an ethical dilemma because I knew that some people would misinterpret what I said. I knew that I would be, attacked by the mayor, which I was. But I knew that I had the conviction that it was right. Yes. And I think that's what you get to with an ethical dilemma, is having the confidence in yourself that that you have really dug deep and figured out that this is the right thing to do. And despite the consequences, it's worth doing. And I've certainly been in that situation in professional situations as well, where I have seen leaders do things that I didn't think were right. And I've taken the initiative and spoken about it. Now, how you do that is the trick, because there's a way, one of my mentors said this. He said, there's 3 steps, right? One is you come to your whether it's an employer or someone else, and you say, this is wrong. I think this is wrong. That's, okay, if you're right about it and you're saying like this is an issue, you're whoever you're working for should appreciate that. Now, the next step to do even better, you say, hey, I think this is wrong, and here's what I would do about it. That's the second level, right? That's now you're pointing something wrong and you're providing a solution. Now the third level is, hey, I think this is wrong. Here are 3 things we could do about it, and this is the best one, I think. So then you're providing a range of options, and so that's one of the things I've learned is that even when you face ethical dilemmas and you have to call something out because it's not right, there are ways to do it in a way that that will make it easier to take. And I think with the methadone, if I use the methadone, the statements I gave on the methadone clinics, I felt like we did a very good job because I literally documented every single conversation I had and put it in a diary. So you can literally see my thought process as I'm going through this issue and what were the conversations that led me to that decision. And so, even though it still got, like overly simplified, I think people that really care about it will go back and said, you know what, he really tried to understand this issue from multiple lenses and did not try to stigmatize any group of people, but really try to bring forward something that could work for to balance the 2 needs. And that's what I find is like when you're able to find that voice where you can speak truth to power, but do so from a solution-based mindset.
There you go.
It can actually empower you. Like it doesn't have to be the case that like calling out these things hurts you professionally. I found that people do respect it when you are able to be very rational about it, let go of the emotions, and just say like, this is what I observe and this is what I think we should do about it.
Yeah, keeping it realistic, and keeping it simple, one thing at a time. So what do you think the most pressing problem is facing? Our city has a couple of problems, but maybe 1 or 2 pressing problems, and how you would probably resolve them or close to resolve them, or what team you would pick to resolve them.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of issues that we know a lot of New Haveners are concerned about. Most people will talk about safety is a big one, housing is another, education is another. And I actually start with education because I think that's a foundational thing. I feel like that is the one that really, because even if you don't have kids, and so you might think, well, why should I care about education? I don't have kids. Or, some people, they might not put their kids through the public system. They might put them somewhere else. But it is so important because you can't fix the other issues without having a quality education for kids. And this is something that I just fundamentally believe in. I come from a family of school teachers. And if you want to reduce, if you want to improve the neighborhoods or home ownership, or you want to improve the quality of life and the safety in the streets, I mean, kids got to go to school and get a quality education. And those 2 things have not been happening. I mean, New Haven was kind of an innovator when it comes to public education. The Promise program, I mean, New Haven Promise wasn't the first city to do that, but it was one of the first.
Yes.
And then you look at the decades of New Haven being on kind of the leading foreground of education reform. And then to hear that we're behind Bridgeport. I
Yeah, that,
what's up with that? Like, what happened? You know, like I don't get
and
so
Bridgeport's kids are coming to our charter school, so it's kind of confused. I'm a bit confused on
it
that.
it makes no sense. And that I mean that's why I go back to, you know, the district leadership going up and saying this is because of COVID. Everyone has had COVID. The fact that our schools in the last 4 years have slid so far behind that
Mm,
we have the worst performance in the state is something that should shock. And it I just saying it shocks me. But this is what we've been going through. And
yeah.
so, you know, I know that we need to do better. We need more. First of all, we need a mayor that is hands-on and engaged
Mhm.
in the school system, a mayor that can call out, you know, and hold people accountable, make sure that there's rigor and there's transparency. And
Yes,
I just haven't seen that. And then to your point about the parents, I feel like the parents have been shut out too. We've got
very
board
much.
ed meetings for 3 years that have been held remotely. And only after myself and others have been tirelessly advocating for in-person meeting, one day
Yes.
we just kind of quietly moved to hybrid, which is great, but it shouldn't have waited so long. We
Yeah.
shouldn't have been the last school in the state to open the schools back up. In the fact that of our 44 schools, you only have you have less than a quarter. Maybe it's like 8 schools, something. I don't have the exact number, but it
Mm,
surprisingly small number of schools have parent organizations that actually regularly meet. And
mm.
so you look at this between the Board of Ed and the parent organization, like need to bring parents closer, not keep them further out.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so I think that's a big part of it. I would want to establish in the mayor's office a liaison to the New Haven Public Schools that can specifically working on supporting parents, um, giving parents the resources to really be able to work with their kids,
Mm-hmm.
and help them through this. So I
Yeah.
that's kind of the biggest. You'll see like on my door card, it's number one, put the
Mm-hmm.
school back on track. I mean,
Yes.
it's so important.
Now, I agree with you, but we have to really, really face that we are in a housing crisis. It is just unaffordable. We have all these luxury apartments coming up, um, and there are like 13,000 luxury apartments and zero affordable housing. So, um, what measures would you take to make more affordable housing for New Haven specifically? Um,
But this
that's
is
it.
go ahead.
No, it really boggles me how we have all of these luxury apartments and they specifically have amount of affordable apartments that are always filled before they even open. So I'm not sure how that goes, but I do know that there's a lot of places being built, but people are being priced out of them. So at the same time, we have a federal government that's giving people Social Security raises that are pricing them out of affordable housing at the same time. So that's not being considered. So we have homeless families, which of course means that the kids have to move around if they're in shelters. So we have a lot of things before they get to school with the issues. So the biggest part of it is what would you do to face the affordable housing? That's my granddaughter checking on grandma.
So again, this is an issue that requires a little bit of a unpacking, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
um, we have things that we can do as a city, that's at the city level,
Mm-hmm.
things that we should be doing at a state level. And then, quite honestly, a big chunk of it is things we should be doing at a federal level as a country. And let me start there, which is
Mm-hmm.
I am a big proponent of the housing voucher program, where you can get a subsidy that you can choose where you want to live. I think that's an excellent program. The problem is that as a country, we do not fund this program hardly at all. And that's why when I go on the buses and I talk to folks, they're homeless, or they're like, they can't get housing. Are they on the voucher program? Well, they're on the wait list. And what are they on the wait list? Are they, what, 10, 20, 50?
13,000. I have somebody that's 13,000, literally 13,248. That person is with 6 kids.
Think about that. That's insane. And so you're waiting years? Now on the
They've
other
been on the list since 2018.
So one of the things, I want to talk to Senator Blumenthal, Representative DeLauro, like, let's make the housing voucher program fully funded, right? Yeah. So the same way with the SNAP program, if I qualify for SNAP, I don't go on a voucher, I don't go on a wait list, right? I get my EBT card, because the way as a country we structured the food program is if you qualify, you get it.
Yeah.
And that is how I believe the voucher program should work, and we need our U.S. delegation to push for that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's at a like very high level. I do not think as a city we can solve that problem.
Not at all. No.
Right?
I think, especially with the landlords that we have, we have a lot of people that are doing the most that they can to help people, but then they get what we call burned. And then, everybody's a bad apple when it comes to the voucher program. So you have to look at it from both angles.
But let me say some more. So one of the things that I just don't understand, right? We have property taxes in New Haven. They've gone up, and up year after year. And when you combine that with the fact that we did a revaluation, and the most affected areas are the Hill, New Hallville, and Fairhaven, all Black and Latino neighborhoods. So that over 2 years, if you're in these neighborhoods, on average, you see a 40% increase in your taxes. Is just insane to me.
Are you guys? I hope people are paying attention to hearing that, because a lot of people don't realize that.
I mean, if you look at your tax bill, you will, but it's also a deep inequity, because other neighborhoods, instead of 40, they go up 7. And that's a huge difference, So I think the tax policies we've put in place right now have really hurt these neighborhoods. That's why I want to freeze taxes for the next 2 years. And I think it's imperative that we do so, because that is also pushing out our middle class. People are less inclined to buy or to own because they just can't afford it.
Yeah, it's unaffordable. I mean, when your mortgage is less than your tax portion on your bill, it's just like, what just happened? And you cut, like, I was getting ready to ask you about taxation, so it seems like everything that I'm going to ask you cover it before, but that's great, because we can, what can we do to reduce the homelessness because of the things that are going on where people are losing their homes? And again, it goes back to the federal, using the money properly, I should just say, using the money properly.
Well, and getting more money, I'm going to be honest, like, we need to expand. It's like, that would require additional federal funding, but is something that as a country, I think we know that if you provide on a housing first model, if you provide housing to people first, they're more likely to not be homeless, and they're more likely to be employed, because they're coming from a place of stability.
And the crime declines, and
you got, like you said, there's a lot of kids in the system right now that don't have a stable home, that are either homeless or in insecure housing. The other thing I do want to say is, when we think affordable housing, affordable housing used to mean old housing, right? And I think one of the things that's happened, we've seen in our country, that a lot of the housing stock is not getting bought for people to live in, but it's for people to invest in.
And make money in. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got like nationally, just for single families,
Yes.
25% of them are just going to investment nationally, right? So that's just for the single families. I do think there needs to be an incentive to level the playing field for owner-occupied housing purchases, because that goes to create more stability in the neighborhood when people are living in the houses they own, whether it's a single family or a small multifamily. We need that for our neighborhoods.
Yeah, I know a lot of people with starter houses. We had a program that was working out very well, and it's kind of declined now. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. But remember the first time home buyer and all the different programs that we have. But we need more planned initiatives. I think it's just gonna, like I said, picking the right people to do the right things and all working together to support them. So, do you have any ideas about how to make our city more affordable for everyone, not just
Well, I think, I mean, affordability is multiple ways, right? I mean, affordability does get back to property taxes, because that is part of what goes to the monthly cost, both as a property owner or homeowner, but even as a renter, it pushes prices up. So I think that's part of it. I think there are areas of the city where we do need to build more tax revenue and actually take that tax revenue, right? They underassess a lot of the main buildings, right? So I do think economic development, if we do it smart in the right areas, I look at Union Station and I just see a ton of potential there. One of my ideas, or early ideas, is why don't we rename Union Station in honor of Constance Baker Motley, who is a pioneer and a local legend, and create it as almost a tourist attraction for people to really get that experience. And then if you go across the street, we've got that empty lot. Why don't we make that a pedestrian thoroughfare that goes to the green? That was going back 100 years ago. That was the original vision for the city. You can get retail, some mixed use development. So part of the things when we do this, we do increase our tax revenue. It lessens the burden on the taxes, which does help. I do agree. I think most cities and most politicians at this point do agree that density can be good, when it's used appropriately in the right circumstances to, bring some of the prices down. Right now, it's a seller's market. I'm talking to people that are trying to buy a house, and these are people in very well-paid professions even, and they're I don't know, it's not many people are selling. So I do think encouraging more development is good, and increasing the tax base is also a good thing. But while we do that, we just have to be intentional. We have to make sure that we're preserving the things that makes the city beautiful in our neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why I was going to ask you, what do you think our city's biggest strength is?
We got so many strengths. So I'll share something. A lot of times, sometimes in my line of work, where you work with other cities, you'll look at a city and you'll say, well, what's a benchmark, or what's another city that they could aspire to be, or that they should be like? And it's a whole different angles, but the comparison city that would come up quite frequently is Cambridge in the United Kingdom. And it's very interesting because, I wasn't aware of this, but Cambridge, the city, is the same population size as New Haven. They have 130,000 people. Okay. They also have Cambridge University, which is, also a major research institution like we have Yale. And Cambridge in the UK is about 90 minutes from London, the same way that we're proximate to New York, right? So the same kind of raw ingredients are there, but they've become an economic powerhouse where they recently announced about 90,000 jobs have been produced out of that city. And so that's why when I look at New Haven, I say, okay, where are the industries where the future is and where we can grow and we can train individuals and we can also bring in larger employers? Well, they're in biotechnology, they're in climate technology, where there's going to be a ton of money coming in from the federal government, and they're in healthcare innovation. And I truly believe that we can create 50,000 jobs here in the next 10 years.
Yes.
And we do that by being proactive, by being aggressive, like really building things up. But we also do it by making sure our education system is creating those opportunities, that we have local hiring commitments, that these private partners are committed to our communities as well. And that also includes workforce development programs. So that's kind of the vision. It's like, let's grow the pie. Let's expand the pie. Let's make New Haven an economic powerhouse, which we should be. But let's also use that to address the historical inequities that we've had. You know, we know that, like many U.S. cities, New Haven has been redlined and segregated, dating back, like 80 years, right? So, a lot of cities are dealing with that. But if we do this in the right way, if we grow our economic base and invest in education, workforce development, and also you mentioned businesses, I want to see a lot. We need so much more to do, so much more when it comes to minority-owned businesses.
Yes,
we are not cutting it. When you look at our minority contracting program, the fact that maybe 1% is going to local Black contractors is something not right about that. So in my first 90 days or 100 days.
There you go. Answer my questions before I ask them again.
Well, I'll tell you the first thing I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go up the steps of City Hall. I'm going to go right to the mayor's office. And I'm not really good with tools, but I'm going to have someone take that door and take it off.
Thank you. Open door, and you will actually be there when you can. So.
Exactly. Open door to the mayor's office. Let's not even have a door. And that's what Bloomberg did in New York City. I for the life of me, nobody can figure it out. It's like that you go up the steps of City Hall, you go to the mayor's office, the door's closed. I mean, what's going on? So that's day one. But within the first 100 days, I want to revise our approach to minority contracting. I want to make sure that there's a set amount that goes to local, that is Greater New Haven Black contractors. Because what I have found is that there is a glaring disparity in how that is happening. And so you have all this economic development, but the community that we even created a minority contracting guideline is not really being benefited. So that is one, and that goes across the board. How we work with small businesses, how we work with minority business owners and entrepreneurs. That has to be one of the success metrics of my administration. Is how are we creating economic empowerment, minority business ownership, and success in these neighborhoods.
That's amazing. Like everything you're saying is really, it's really effective, and implementing it. So in implementing it, how would you work with elected officials and staff? And I also want to thank you because I was still getting calls from everyone because I was still Ward 30's co-chair. And everybody else stopped calling. You did not. And I appreciate that because it just seemed like, okay, I understand how important that position was, but my health and mental stability, I needed to give it up. So I did. So when I started getting the calls and people would call me, I'm going, oh, they must think I'm still. And that as soon as they realized I wasn't anymore, the conversation kind of went abrupt. with you, it was like, okay, I'm listening to her. And then every time I saw you, and then here we are, you know, and everybody knows they're always invited to come see me because I'm non-biased until I'm biased. So, you know, once I'm there, I'm there. So I appreciate that you did do that. But how would you work with local of other elected officials and, you know, just some of the staff? Pick your staffing. What would your ideas be for that in our last 10, 15? Oh, wow, we got 15 minutes already. We went fast. You answered all my questions. I couldn't even ask them because you got me. You knew where I was going.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like to get in the weeds and really figure out what, you know, what other people are bringing to the table and how I can complement that and how I can get a consensus. I think that's something that I've developed over the years. And, you know, being a business owner myself, you can't be overly stubborn. You have to listen to people that you work with and treat them as equals. And so I think that respect and that willing to, it's not, I don't even call it negotiating. It's just understanding. That's kind of where I start as a basic principle, working with the other elected officials in the city, you know, working with cabinet members. I mean, one thing I've told anyone that works with me is I want critical feedback. Like, it's something that I thrive on, and I want to be able to, because that's kind of like the chiseling, you know what I mean? It's like, you got a sharp stone and you put it in a tumbler and it goes around and the edges get soft. And I feel like I might have an idea on, you know, any of these topics, education, safety, housing, right? But it's when you have those conversations and when people bring other ideas to the table that that idea becomes something that's really valuable. So that's what I would say is, like, I want critical feedback. I do not want anyone to just go along because I'm saying it. And in fact, like, I will support people even if they don't support me. Like, if I see someone who's standing up for their community and who is, you know, really thinking about how they can make it better, and, you know, even if they don't support me, I'm like, yeah, that's what our city needs.
That's a good quality. That's a great quality.
People, and we need more people to step up. We need a bench of people that are engaged and you know, interested in being part of the political process and who knows something about something. And that's ultimately what creates the you know, a really powerful combination of in our city.
It is. It's amazing because it's the melting pot of things, because everybody is different financially. You know, there's deficit here, there's deficit there. And, you know, we're all being affected even by gun control. And, you know, there's nothing that we really can do except keep ourselves safe. But public safety in the city is not anyone's fault. And that's why I explain to people, it's all of us together have to improve public safety. And I don't like when they blame, you know, mayors or anyone elected on public safety issues, because you can't control a human. So I always just make sure that, you know, be careful of your surroundings. But I just would really, probably in the last few minutes, but of course we need more police officers, and they need more funding for training. But would you have a different approach with what we're going through now? I think that they're more empathetic now. They're being trained to be more empathetic. But I do believe that New Haven is one of the cities that could teach some of the other countries, or other states, I should say, and some other cities around here, the difference between, even with what has gone on as of late, I still see less here in New Haven than I would see in even a Brantford, you know, and, you know, things are still going on in East Haven. So public safety amongst each other.
And if I take a step back, you know, a few weeks, we did press conference in the Botanical Gardens, and that's kind of right over where you are, right? So,
yes.
First of all, that is such a powerful just experience. Just
It was a
walking.
very long process. I don't know if you know I was involved with the process. It was a very long process.
I can only imagine. It's a very, in a way, it's a very difficult thing to go through. Those bricks. You see year after year the victims of gun violence, and you see the name and you see their age, and some of them are very young. And so I think you're absolutely right. It's no one person can stop that. It really takes the whole community to work together and to stop making these bricks. Like, already this year we've got 12 or 13 of them. So I think that it has to be a community approach. I think that we need to go back to the principles of early intervention and prevention. I think we have to do something to reduce the proliferation of illegal guns. Those two things are the things that I believe very strongly in, and that I'm committed to working on. We used to have the USTAT program under Mayor Harp. I think that is an excellent model that we need to expand in further, not to cut it down and scale it back. And so that's one of the things I really committed to. Let's identify before there's an issue, right? Of course. Exactly. So that mindset of, especially with the youth, like, let's not wait until they're already justice involved before we're getting involved with their family and helping them out. Like, let's anticipate and prevent. And I do absolutely believe that we've got to somehow, as a community, have strategies to reduce the guns on the streets. Because when I'm a data person, right? Like, when I look at the statistics and we look all across the world, nobody has gun violence like the United States. Nobody has as many guns as the United States. And I'm a firm believer in responsible gun ownership and, safe storage and all those things. But the fact is, we have a lot of, with the ghost guns, and whether it's stolen or, underground sales for guns, we've got a lot of these going around, and we've got to have a way to really, as a full community, to say we've got to stop, and we've got to come up with strategies to get them off the street.
Yeah, the thing about it is, like, they're trying, or the policies are trying to fix it from where the problem is not. They're trying to control me as a legal gun owner with 3 permits in 3 states, where the issue is actually guns that are illegal, and the mental health of the people that are getting the very easily getting the illegal guns, and that scares me. So they're always changing the policies for us as who we are, and then we end up having the situation where there's a kid that's 12 that just got angry with somebody and decided they wanted to shoot him, and he got it within the hour. So I that's a little touchy-feely for me when it comes to that gun control situation. But is there anything else you feel like is important for the voters to know about you or your platform? Because
the one thing I would call out, I think one of the things I really believe in is service. It's one of the things that I feel like I came back from that experience of being in the tsunami and being in India, and just being in a completely different culture that I do feel like I really brought back with me. And that's kind of that's really the driving thing, is I want to have an impact. I want to make a difference, and I'm seeing a lot of excitement Folks are very engaged, and when we talk about these issues at the doors, like
Mhm.
people are ready for a change.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking to expand our tent and expand the team, and would love to have people to reach out. Our website's tomfornewhaven.com. And
Mhm.
my email is tom@tomfornewhaven.com. Go to the website, all the information's there. And I just encourage people to get involved. The political process is an important one.
It
And
is.
it's important to vote because that really does determine where attention gets given. So I just encourage people to get involved and get engaged. And if the things that we talked about, if they resonate, please reach out.
Thank you so much. So this is, I want people to be informed, because a lot of times people don't understand what the role of a mayor is, and they just go, okay, well, I know that you're responsible for everything. So I always pull up a little bit. So this is my, what is the role of a mayor? The role of a mayor is to act as the chief executive officer of the city or municipality. This includes overseeing day-to-day operations, managing the budget, and working with other city officials and local representatives to address pressing community issues. So understand, sometimes the mayor's office is not your direct point of contact. You have your co-chairs first, your alders next, and then usually your alders are able to handle most things that are going on. So remember, there are pretty much 3 people in every area or every ward in New Haven that are able to help. There's very few with 1, but I just want to let you know that that is the role of a mayor. The mayor must also be an effective communicator, both in person and through various media outlets, to connect with the public and convey his or her vision for the city. Overall, the role of a mayor is multifaceted and requires a combination of leadership, management, and communication skills to be successful. We need to look at that and make sure that we do the research, do the fact checking, hang out with some people that might know who your candidate is, and make sure you're choosing the right one. But if you do nothing at all, vote for someone, because a lot of people have died on both sides for us to do so. So Tom, I cannot thank you enough for taking out the time to hang with me. Can you let people know what you have coming up? I know I'm going to try to get
it on Wednesday upcoming of this week. We're going to have an event at Delaney's at 6 p.m. I'm actually going to perform some music. So, going back to my days of aspiring to be a musician, I've kind of found a way to incorporate that somehow. But yeah, we'll be doing a bunch of songs from the Beatles, and it should be a good time. Really good. Yeah.
All right. I will plan on being there, and I'll see if I can. I wish I could be able to get you on, but thank you again, and you have an absolutely wonderful day. I'll see you on the street soon. I know, I'm supporting, so we will see what happens with that. And I just cannot tell you how much I appreciate the person that you are. And you just, unfortunately, you're one of my nephews. So everybody's gonna be like, oh God, here comes Marcy's nephew. All right. Well, thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.
Yeah, praise goes up, blessings come down. I need a blessing right now.